You are listening to Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan.
Chapter 44. Buck pulled to the side of the road at the summit of Cottonwood Pass and turned off the engine. He opened the door and slid out of the Jeep. It was a beautiful night with almost no wind, and the Milky Way looked like you could reach up and touch it. The temperature had dropped, and Buck could feel some moisture in the air. Snow would come soon, and he was sorry that it would put a crimp in the governor's plans, but he knew the governor would press on anyway. He had set a huge project in front of a massive army of federal, state, and local workers, and would not rest until they achieved his goal. Buck looked in the distance and saw two sets of headlights farther down the road on the east side. It looked like one set was in a field off the road. The bug in his brain kicked him in the side of the head, and a chill ran up his spine. Buck jumped into his Jeep and pulled off the shoulder. He cruised down the empty road until he was a couple 100 feet from the cars and hidden by a small rise. He pulled over, stopped the Jeep, slid out, and softly closed the door. He worked his way over the rise. One vehicle, a dark SUV, was parked on the road. The second SUV, lighter in color, was several yards off the road, tilted to one side. There was someone lying on the ground in the field, alongside the SUV. Another person was crawling around the seats, looking for something. Buck made his way into the field and moved closer. He paused and listened. "Where the fuck is it, bitch?" asked the person looking in the SUV. He stopped looking and approached the person on the ground. He grabbed the person on the ground, pulled them up by the collar, and punched them in the face. "Tell me where you hit it and I might let you live," he said. Then he hit them again. Buck had seen enough. He pulled his pistol and held it down at his side. "Police," he said. "Don't move a muscle." The man dropped the person to the ground and started to stand up. As he did, he grabbed a pistol off his belt and spun towards Buck's voice, but Buck had moved 5 paces to his left. The bullet went right where Buck had been standing 15 seconds before, but flew through empty air. Buck fired twice, and the man slammed into the SUV and slid to the ground. He walked over, pistol at the ready, and approached the man on the ground. He kicked the gun away, pulled his handcuffs and cuffed the man's hands together, then he checked for a pulse. He stood and stepped over to the person on the ground. It was a woman he had seen before. He pulled out his phone, but he had no service, and he put his phone away. He took off his coat, folded it into a pillow, and placed it under Mrs. Woodman's head. "I'll be right back. I need to get my sat phone from the car." He patted her hand and raced to his Jeep, where he pulled the sat phone out of a case in the back. He punched in a number from memory, and he could hear the phone connect to the closest satellite and ring. "Sheriff Weaver, who is this?" "Paul Buck Taylor. I'm about 200 yards from the Cottonwood Pass summit. There's been an accident. A woman's hurt, and I was involved in a shooting." "Are you all right?" asked the sheriff. "Yeah," said Buck. "Suspect is dead, and the woman is hurt badly. I've got to go. Send everyone." Buck grabbed a water bottle and ran back to the SUVs. He kneeled next to Mrs. Woodman, raised her head and gave her a sip of water. "Mrs. Woodman, can you tell me what happened?" He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, soaked it with water, and wiped the blood from her face. Mrs. Woodman asked for another sip of water, drank, and looked at him. She was pale, and her body was shaking. Her voice was strained. "I hoped I had avoided them, but I guess they were on to my deception." She swallowed and winced, gasping for air. "I saw the same car several times in the past couple of days, which is why I made an exit plan. It didn't work." "What was he looking for, ma'am?" "A small black USB drive." "Did he find it?" "I don't think so." "Where is it?" She coughed and placed her hand on her chest. "I put it in the washer fluid container, under the hood. It's in a plastic bag." Buck could hear sirens coming from both directions. He laid Mrs. Woodman on the makeshift pillow and walked to the SUV. He reached in, popped the hood, and stepped around to the front of the vehicle. He opened the hood, pulled a flashlight out of his pocket, and lit up the engine compartment. He spotted the washer fluid reservoir on the left side, popped the top open, stuck his 2 fingers into the reservoir and felt a plastic bag. He gripped it with his 2 fingers, pulled it out and let the fluid drain off the bag. He shined the flashlight on the bag and found the drive was dry. He walked back over to Mrs. Woodman and held up the bag. She looked at the bag and smiled weakly. Tim told me if you plug it into his laptop, all would be revealed. I don't know what that means, but Tim enjoyed being mysterious. Tears flowed down her one open eye. Several Garfield County Sheriff's SUVs pulled to a stop and turned their searchlights on the SUV in the field. Sheriff Weaver, followed by several deputies, ran down the slope and approached Buck. He looked at the body on the ground and the body next to the SUV. He pointed to the body by the SUV. "You check for ID?" asked the sheriff. "I didn't want to disturb the crime scene," said Buck. 2 paramedics raced down the slope and checked Mrs. Woodman. They ran back to the ambulance, grabbed a wooden backboard and carried it down the slope. Buck and the sheriff walked over. "She gonna be all right?" asked Buck. "She's beaten up pretty good, but I'm worried she might be bleeding internally. We need to get her to the hospital ASAP." They rolled her onto the backboard, and with the help of 2 of the deputies, they carried it to the ambulance, placed her on the gurney inside, and raced towards the emergency room at Valley View Hospital in Glenwood Springs. A white van with the Garfield County logo on the door pulled to a stop, and 2 tie-vet-clad technicians walked down the slope. Sheriff Weaver called them over and gave them instructions. They headed back to the van, pulled 2 boxes out of the back, and headed for the stuck SUV. Buck stepped aside with the sheriff and gave him a quick debrief. After finishing, the sheriff asked, "Did you find the USB drive?" Buck held up the sticky wet bag. "Yeah, I need to get this to the team and get them working on it." "Who the hell would have done this to her?" the sheriff asked. "Did she say anything?" "Only that since her husband's death, she felt like she was being watched. She was sharp enough to work out using a neighbor's car so she could get away unseen. Good plan, it just didn't work." "Poor lady," said the sheriff. "She's had a hell of a week." He looked serious. "Buck, what the hell is going on? We've got a lot of bodies stacking up." "Yeah," said Buck. "I'm hoping whatever is on this drive will help us figure this out." One tech walked over with a cardboard evidence box. Buck pulled his pistol from his holster, popped out the magazine and jacked the round out of the chamber. He placed everything in the box, and the tech sealed the box, signed the tape, and handed Buck a receipt. "We'll get that back to you as soon as possible. I called the DA, and Seema is on the way up here. Seema was calling your director to see if he could send up the chopper. I'll wait here for her and the DA's shooting team. Why don't you head back and get that USB drive figured out?" They shook hands, and Buck accepted his handcuffs from one of the techs. He walked to his Jeep, opened the hatch and opened the gun safe in the back. He took another pistol from the safe, placed it in his holster, closed the hatch, and slid into the Jeep. He made a U-turn on the road and headed back to Glenwood Springs. They still had a lot to do, and he would be out of commission for a day at least.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of Crime Unraveled, a Buck Taylor novel by Chuck Morgan. You can find the entire crime series as well as other novels by Chuck Morgan at chuckmorganbooks.com or on Amazon.